Life is full of challenges. At some point, we all face situations that seem overwhelming, obstacles that look impossible to overcome, and questions that appear to have no answers. But no matter how big the problem, no matter how difficult the circumstance, there is always a solution. It may not be obvious at first, it may not come in the way we expect, but it is there. The key to finding solutions is not allowing problems to consume our thoughts. Too often people get stuck focusing on what's wrong, replaying the difficulties in their minds, and letting fear take over. But dwelling on the problem only makes it seem bigger. The moment we shift our focus from the problem to the possibility of a solution, things begin to change. Instead of saying, "This is too hard," we should start asking, "What can I do? What steps can I take? How can I grow through this?" Many times, the answer doesn't come in an instant. It requires persistence, patience, and faith. Some solutions unfold over time through a process of learning and adapting. Others come in unexpected ways, through people we meet, opportunities that arise, or wisdom we gain along the journey. That's why it's important to stay open, to keep moving forward, and to trust that the right solution is on its way. Sometimes, what seems like a dead end is actually a redirection. The door that closes might be leading you to something better. The delay you're experiencing could be preparing you for something greater. What looks like a setback might be the very thing positioning you for a breakthrough. If we understood that every challenge is an opportunity for growth, we wouldn't fear difficulties, we would face them with confidence. History is filled with people who turn problems into opportunities. Inventors, leaders, and visionaries didn't allow difficulties to stop them. Instead of seeing failure, they saw lessons. Instead of being discouraged, they became determined. They understood that every great solution starts with a challenge. The very thing meant to hold them back became the platform that lifted them higher. It's not just about waiting for answers to appear. It's about stepping forward with faith, doing what we can and believing that the right doors will open. Sometimes solutions require creativity, thinking outside the box, or seeking advice from others. Other times they come when we least expect them, in ways we never imagined. But no matter what, there is always a way forward. Your mindset is the steering wheel of your life. It dictates the direction you take, the obstacles you overcome, and the victories you achieve. The way you think about your challenges will either open doors or keep them locked. You may be facing setbacks, delays, or difficulties that seem immovable, but the real battle isn't with the problem. It's in your mind. Some people go through life thinking, this is just the way it is. Nothing will ever change. They settle for less. Not because they lack the ability, but because they've accepted limitations in their thinking. But what if the key to your breakthrough is a simple shift in your perspective? What if instead of seeing the problem as permanent, you started seeing it as temporary? Instead of saying, I'll never get out of debt, you declared, this is just a season. God is my provider and I will come out stronger. Instead of saying, I'll never get well, you told yourself, healing is on the way and my body is getting stronger every day. When you change your mindset, you change the way you respond to difficulties. A problem may arise, but instead of panicking, you stay in peace. You remind yourself that no problem is bigger than God's ability to turn it around. You may not see the answer right away, but you know that the answer is already in motion. A closed door doesn't mean a dead end. It means a better door is about to open. A delay doesn't mean denial. It means God is working behind the scenes for your good. Think about David before he fought Goliath. Everyone around him saw an impossible battle. They said, David, you're too young. You don't have the experience. That giant is too big. But David had a different mindset. He didn't see a giant too big to defeat. He saw a giant too big to miss. While others were intimidated, he was confident. He knew that God had delivered him before and he would do it again. David's mindset determined his breakthrough. How you see your situation will either empower you or limit you. If you dwell on the negative, if you let fear and doubt take over, you'll stay stuck. But when you believe that God is for you, when you remind yourself that He has a plan, your faith begins to rise. You start expecting good things to happen. You start seeing solutions where others see roadblocks. You may not have the full picture yet, but you trust that breakthrough is on its way. We've all faced obstacles that seemed overwhelming, barriers that made us question if we were on the right path. Maybe it's a financial challenge, a health issue, or a dream that feels stuck. It's easy to see these obstacles as roadblocks, as signs that things aren't going to work out. But what if those very challenges were actually setting you up for something greater? What if instead of being a dead end, they were a doorway? Life has a way of presenting problems that at first glance seem like setbacks, but in reality they are stepping stones. Every major breakthrough, every success story is often born out of difficulty. If you study the lives of the most accomplished people, you'll find a common thread. At some point they faced an obstacle that could have stopped them, but instead it became the catalyst for their greatest success. Think about a seed planted in the ground. It faces pressure, darkness, and resistance from the soil above it. But that struggle is exactly what it needs to grow. Without that pressure, it wouldn't develop strong roots. Without the dirt surrounding it, it wouldn't be protected as it gains strength. In the same way, the obstacles you face today are not there to bury you. They are there to develop you. Many times we pray for open doors, for success, for favor, but we don't realize that the answer often comes wrapped in opposition. The job loss that forces you to start your own business, the rejection that pushes you into something better, the closed door that redirects you to the right path. If we only look at the challenge, we'll miss the opportunity. Obstacles also refine and strengthen us. They push us beyond our comfort zones and force us to grow in ways we never would have on our own. They build resilience, endurance, and wisdom. When you push through resistance, you don't just come out the same, you come out stronger, wiser, more prepared. The very thing that seemed like it was working against you was actually working for you. Sometimes what looks like a problem is actually a promotion in disguise. The difficulty you're facing isn't a sign that you're losing. It's a sign that you're about to rise higher. Just because something is hard doesn't mean it's not meant to be. Sometimes the greatest victories come after the greatest struggles. The obstacle isn't there to stop you. It's there to prepare you for what's next. The words you speak have power. They are not just sounds that disappear into the air. They shape your reality, frame your future, and determine the outcome of your situation. Too often, when we face difficulties, we allow our words to align with what we see instead of what we believe. We speak words of defeat, words of doubt, words of fear. I'll never get out of this mess. Things will never change. I don't see a way forward. But the more you declare negativity, the more you reinforce the very problem you're trying to escape. Instead of speaking about how big the problem is, start declaring how big your God is. Instead of saying, I'll never get well, start declaring healing is coming my way. Instead of saying, I'm always struggling, begin speaking, I am blessed, favored, and doors of opportunity are opening for me. What you speak, you empower. When you declare defeat, you give strength to the problem. When you declare victory, you give strength to the solution. Your words set the direction for your life. If you speak faith, your life will move toward victory. If you speak defeat, your life will move toward despair. In the book of Proverbs, it says, the power of life and death is in the tongue. That means every word you release is either lifting you up or pulling you down. It's either moving you toward your destiny or keeping you stuck in frustration. You may not see it immediately, but words have a way of shaping the atmosphere around you. Think about David when he faced Goliath. Everyone else was speaking fear. They were talking about how big Goliath was, how impossible the battle seemed, but David didn't join in their negative talk. He didn't stand there and say, this giant is too big, I don't have a chance. No, he spoke victory. He declared, this day the Lord will deliver you into my hands. Before he even picked up a stone, he had already won the battle with his words. He spoke victory, and victory came to pass. In the same way, you have to speak what you want to see, not just what you see in the moment. If you're battling sickness, start speaking, I'm strong, I'm healed, my body is whole. If your finances are tight, say, I am blessed, increase is coming, new doors are opening. It may not feel true yet, but faith speaks what it believes, not what it sees. When you start declaring victory, when you align your words with faith instead of fear, you invite the power of God to move in your situation. So often we face challenges in life and think, I don't have what it takes. I'm not strong enough, not talented enough, not qualified. But the truth is, God never places you in a situation without first giving you everything you need to overcome it. Before you ever encountered that difficulty, He had already placed the strength, wisdom, and resources inside of you to handle it. You may not see it yet, but just because you don't recognize it doesn't mean it's not there. The very thing you need to move forward is already within you. Think about David when he faced Goliath. He wasn't a trained warrior. He didn't have the best armor. He didn't have years of experience in battle, but he had something more powerful. He had God's anointing, and he had the skill with a sling that he had developed while tending sheep. That skill didn't seem significant at the time, but it was exactly what he needed for the battle ahead. What God put in David was enough, and what He put in you is enough too. Too often we compare ourselves to others thinking, if only I had their talent, their resources, their opportunities. But God didn't equip you to be someone else. He equipped you to be you. The gifts inside you are not a mistake. The experiences you've had, the lessons you've learned, the challenges you've faced, they've all been preparing you for what's next. Instead of wishing you had something different, start looking at what you already have. That idea, that skill, that connection, that faith, it's not ordinary. It's exactly what you need. Moses felt unqualified when God called him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. He said, God, I can't do this. I'm not a good speaker. But God didn't ask Moses for what he lacked. He asked him for what he had. What's in your hand, Moses? It was just a simple staff, but when he surrendered it to God, it became a tool for miracles. The same is true for you. It may seem small, but when you give God what you have, He will multiply it. Don't let fear tell you you're not enough. Don't let doubt convince you you're unqualified. God didn't make a mistake when He created you. He has placed inside you the strength to overcome, the wisdom to navigate challenges, and the favor to walk into your destiny. You already have what it takes. Everything you need is already in you. Life has a way of presenting challenges that seem overwhelming. At times we face setbacks that make us question our ability to move forward. The more we dwell on our struggles, the bigger they appear. The more we focus on what's wrong, the more discouraged we become. But the key to overcoming obstacles isn't to magnify the problem, it's to shift our focus to the solution. When you concentrate on struggles, you feed your fears. You replay your failures, relive disappointments, and reinforce the idea that things aren't working out. This mindset keeps you stuck, making it harder to see the way forward. But when you choose to focus on solutions, you shift from a place of defeat to a place of possibility. Instead of dwelling on what's wrong, you start looking for what can be made right. Instead of saying, I don't see a way, you begin to declare, there has to be a way, and I'm going to find it. Solutions don't always come in an instant. They require faith, patience, and a willingness to see beyond the problem. Sometimes the answer is right in front of you, but worry and frustration block your vision. That's why staying in peace is so important. When your mind is at rest, creativity flows and new ideas emerge. You begin to recognize opportunities you may have overlooked before. The solution might come through an unexpected conversation, a sudden realization, or a door that opens at just the right time. History is filled with people who refused to focus on struggles and instead chose to seek solutions. Great inventors, leaders, and visionaries didn't waste time complaining about what wasn't working. They looked for answers. When Thomas Edison was working on the light bulb, he failed thousands of times before finding the right design. If he had focused on his struggles, he would have given up. But because he stayed focused on the solution, he created something that changed the world. The same principle applies to everyday life. If you're struggling in your career, instead of focusing on what's going wrong, start looking for ways to improve. If a relationship is strained, instead of dwelling on the conflict, focus on how to bring peace and understanding. If you're dealing with a financial setback, don't let fear take over. Start seeking practical steps to turn things around. Your energy goes where your focus is. When you focus on struggles, you give them power. But when you focus on solutions, you invite wisdom, strength, and divine favor into your situation. Challenges become stepping stones, obstacles become opportunities, and setbacks become setups for something greater. There are moments in life when it feels like our prayers are going unanswered, our dreams are slipping away, and the doors we've been knocking on remain firmly shut. We put in the effort, we stand in faith, and yet nothing seems to change. It's easy to get discouraged when things don't happen on our timeline. But just because something is delayed doesn't mean it has been denied. Delay is not a sign that God has forgotten you. It's often a sign that He is preparing something greater than you can imagine. Many times we mistake delay for rejection. We assume that because we haven't seen the breakthrough yet, it's never going to happen. But God works in seasons, and just because it's not your season right now, doesn't mean your season isn't coming. Think about a farmer who plants seeds in the ground. He doesn't wake up the next morning expecting a full harvest. He knows there is a process, watering, nurturing, waiting. The delay is necessary for the seed to grow strong. In the same way, your delay is a season of preparation, growth, and strengthening. Sometimes the delay is there to build your character. You may be ready for the blessing, but is the blessing ready for you? If you received it too soon, it might overwhelm you instead of bless you. There are lessons that only waiting can teach. Patience, endurance, trust. These are all qualities developed in the delay. When you learn to be faithful in the waiting, you're proving that you can be trusted with what's coming next. Other times, the delay is about positioning. God is not just working on you, He is working on the circumstances around you. There may be people who need to be moved, doors that need to be opened, and opportunities that need to be aligned. If He gave it to you now, it might not be as impactful or effective as it will be when the timing is perfect. Think about Joseph in the Bible. He had a dream of greatness. But before he could step into his destiny, he was sold into slavery, falsely accused and thrown into prison. For years, it seemed like the promise over his life was never going to happen. But every delay was setting him up for something greater. When the time was right, he was elevated to a position of power, and everything fell into place in a way that only God could orchestrate. What looks like a setback is often a setup for something greater. Instead of getting discouraged in the waiting, start praising God that He is working behind the scenes. The delay is not the end of your story, it's just a chapter in the process. Keep trusting, keep believing, and keep moving forward. The voices you listen to shape the direction of your life. Every day we are surrounded by opinions, advice, and influences that either push us forward or hold us back. If you're constantly listening to negative, doubtful, and fearful voices, you'll find yourself weighed down by discouragement. But when you surround yourself with people who speak faith, hope, and possibility, you begin to rise above your challenges. The wrong voices will tell you that your dreams are too big, that the problem is too great, or that you don't have what it takes. They will magnify the obstacles and make you doubt your abilities. But the right voices will remind you of your potential, speak life into your situation, and encourage you to keep moving forward. They will remind you that you are stronger than you think, that setbacks are temporary, and that with faith and determination, you can overcome anything. Look at the people closest to you. Are they lifting you up or pulling you down? Are they filling your mind with confidence or feeding your fears? You can't afford to keep company with those who constantly drain your energy and make you question your worth. The people you spend the most time with will either push you toward your destiny or pull you away from it. In times of uncertainty, you need voices that speak wisdom and clarity. When you're facing a tough decision, you need people who will give you godly counsel, not just tell you what you want to hear. Surround yourself with those who have been where you want to go, who have walked through difficulties and come out stronger, and who see the greatness in you even when you don't see it in yourself. Sometimes you have to make difficult choices about who you allow into your inner circle. Not everyone is meant to go with you to the next level. There are people who were part of your past season but can't handle the weight of your future. You have to be willing to let go of relationships that are keeping you from growing. That doesn't mean you don't love them. It just means you're being intentional about protecting your purpose. The voices you listen to will determine the thoughts you think, and the thoughts you think will shape the life you live. If you're constantly hearing doubt, you'll live in fear. If you're constantly hearing faith, you'll step into boldness. You need people who remind you of who you are, who speak life over your dreams, and who challenge you to be your best self. Life has a way of throwing unexpected challenges our way. Just when we think we're making progress, an obstacle appears, a door closes, or something doesn't go as planned. It's easy to get discouraged, to think that the setback is a sign to give up. But what if the very thing that looks like a delay is actually a divine setup for something greater? What if the obstacle isn't stopping you, but positioning you for a breakthrough? So often we see setbacks as failures, but in reality, they are setups for something beyond what we could have imagined. Think about Joseph in the Bible. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. It looked like everything was going wrong. But in each of those setbacks, God was working behind the scenes, positioning him to become the second most powerful man in Egypt. What seemed like rejection was actually redirection. The prison was not his final destination. It was just a step on the path to the palace. In your own life, that delay, that disappointment, that closed door may feel like a step backward, but it's not the end of the story. Sometimes God allows a detour to take you to a place you never would have reached on your own. You may have been overlooked for the promotion, but what if God is setting you up for something even better? That relationship that didn't work out, what if it was God's way of protecting you from something that wasn't meant for you? Setbacks are not signs to stop. They are signs to trust. Every time you feel like you've been pushed back, remind yourself that God is still in control. He sees the bigger picture. What looks like a loss now could be a setup for a comeback. The things you think are working against you may actually be working for you. Sometimes the road to your destiny requires unexpected turns. What you see as a disappointment today may be the very thing that leads you to your greatest victory. The key is to not let setbacks define you. Don't settle in discouragement. Don't let frustration take root. Keep pressing forward with faith, knowing that what was meant for harm, God can turn around for good. When you trust Him in the middle of the setback, you open the door for Him to turn it into a setup for something greater than you ever imagined.